We fucked up.
We fucked up again. We fucked up real bad. Here, do you remember this sound effect that I brought into an episode not too long ago?
Yeah.
That's like a universal sign for like either getting someone's attention, I guess, or like, you got something right. Point for you. We will not be hearing this bell in this episode.
No.
It's oops, all mistakes.
Yeah. At the beginning of the year this year, we decided to try doing a corrections episode. And then an hour into recording, we had so many. So we kind of came to the conclusion that we should probably return to this every quarter or so, unless we honestly don't have a show's worth of content because we're just so good at doing this. It's part of our diligent responsibility to keep on top of, like, if we're going to counter bad archaeology, bad history, bad science with good stuff, then that means that we have to take response. You'll never see the Ancient Aliens corrections episode.
No. Oh my God. Can you imagine how long that would be?
It'd be a mirror.
Can you imagine?
Actually, it's this show.
I guess it's just this, isn't it?
Yeah. But I do think it's important. There's a lot, and I know that I probably take it personally, but I probably shouldn't because really everybody messes up, and a lot of the mistakes are honest ones or ones that I either leaned into a public understanding of something, or in some cases, there's one that came up kind of recently that my brain just switched off and I just crossed some wires that I know are incorrect, and I just said it anyway.
That's fine. Hey, everyone makes mistakes.
We have to get out of the one, because this is the one that I am the most angry about. And that is a number of weeks back, I guess in our Q&A episode, I, a person who has consumed and spent far too much time in the Star Trekking franchise,
somehow, Trekkie, you might say.
I am an obscene Trekkie. It's depressing how much of a Trekkie I am. I dressed up my son as Captain Kirk for his first Halloween, but I somehow said that Colonel Kira Nerys was part of Star Trek Voyager when she was most definitely part of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Fake fan.
So to sort of make up for it, I'm going to say a bunch of things to show how bad of a Trekkie I am, to know that this was not a me not understanding Star Trek thing. This was my brain just said words and words did not work. So Kira Nerys, who started off as Major Kira, but became Colonel Kira near the end of the show as she got promoted, is the current head of Deep Space Nine, which used to be called Terok Nor under the Cardassian occupation. She was a member of the Bajoran Resistance, in which she did multiple terrorist attacks against them. Her mother was a very uncomfortable subject of a Comfort Women episode of Deep Space Nine that I still have kind of complex feelings about. She was at one point in a relationship with a guy named Vedic Bareil, who was sort of like a priest, and then he died, and there was a whole episode about pulling the plug on people that was about him. And then
great. Keep going.
And then she ended up with Odo, who then
Odo, I know that name.
A person who is now a goop man.
A goop person.
A goop American, they prefer to be called.
That's right.
And then they had like a will they, won't they for a long time. Will they because they like each other, won't they because he's goop. But then they went with the will they and a bunch of scenes that definitely did not make it onto TV. And then he had to go become leader of the Changelings at the end of the Dominion War, which was a war between the Federation and its allies, the Klingon and Romulan empires, and the allies of the Dominion, which were, of course, the Cardassians and the Breen.
Yes.
and primarily based out of the Gamma Quadrant where they're from. And that ended.
Unlike this segment.
Yeah.
Which will not
apparently
end.
In Picard, the Dominion's back, or at least the Changelings are back. So hopefully that list of facts about Kira Nerys, she also was surrogate pregnant because they had to figure out that Nana Visitor was pregnant for a while, but she didn't have a partner, so they just had her be a surrogate mother for the O'Briens for about a season.
Goodness.
And so, I feel like that should. Oh, and also she plays the Regent, the disaster bisexual villain in the Mirror Universe episodes. And you can tell that Nana Visitor is having about 75 times more fun playing disaster bisexual BDSM like Regent than.
Oh, yeah. So we all would.
Yeah. So
now,
that I think gets me hopefully some forgiveness for.
I think you're in the clear. I, for one, am glad that character's introduction happened before our own. Hi, everyone. By the way, my name is Scott. I'm a host of this show. This is a podcast called It's Probably Not Aliens.
Nerys is an alien, though. She's a Bajoran.
That's true. You know what this show... If you're listening to a corrections episode, you know what this show's about. My name's Scott. I don't know anything, and apparently neither does Tristan.
Yeah, this is the episode where I talk about all the mistakes I made, but that mistake is the one that really ate at me. I was like, no. When somebody pointed that out to me, I was like, there is no way I made that mistake.
But
now, hopefully I've redeemed myself.
That's right. Audio doesn't lie, which is a thing that I can only say for a very fleeting amount of time as AI technology gets better and better.
Yeah. So this is It's Probably Not Aliens, podcast about ancient astronauts, ancient astronaut theory, pseudo-history, pseudo-archaeology, and show you all the cool history and science behind the things that they're covering up with their weird alternative explanations.
Yeah.
And today... I'm talking about a lot of times where myself and possibly Scott, depending upon the episode, have done oopsies.
No, I don't think I've made a mistake. I'm pretty flawless.
You want to talk about the hills and the 35-mile gate?
Dang it. Okay. We can tackle this first if you want to. When I filled in for an episode as the person who knows stuff, I talked about Betty and Barney Hill, who were who many people claim to be the first alien abductees. Obviously, there's some contention there as well. But we talked about how when they were dropped off by the aliens, they were dropped off 35 miles away from their car that they were abducted from. And I guess that was wrong. I must have misread it in the article that I was reading for information. Do you have any other information about that other than just that we were wrong?
I think
I was wrong. See, I tried to include you. I was like, we were wrong. No, it was just me. Yeah. I was wrong.
I think they were just 35 miles off of where they were before.
35 miles away from their destination.
Yeah. So that'd be that is my guess.
All right. That's fine. I'll admit to that one.
But the problem is that we unfortunately leaned into that bit.
We kept making jokes about it.
Yeah, and then we did a callback joke about it in the next episode.
Yeah. And then people made tweet jokes about it as well. So it just became a thing.
And also, as the show becomes more relevant, we're starting to get more angry emails and angry comments about how we're CIA spies or how we're we're working for the government to try and cover up the truth about UFOs. And then they're like, you're wrong. Try and do better research next time, dummy. So we got some angry emails about this one. So yeah,
we got some angry emails. And we can debunk we can debunk or confirm. Are we CIA plants? Are we plants here to spread disinformation?
If we are, I'm not making nearly enough money.
I was going to say, boy, I really wish I was making more money. I mean, shout out to NordVPN. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
But that's all I got.
But yeah, so basically the way that I plan on doing this is that every quarter we'll do a corrections episode. There's a living document of basically all of the corrections that are going on. And I basically just go from the earliest episodes to the latest episodes because, and if episodes, and if corrections that come in from older episodes come in, they'll just be the first ones we cover because I feel like the older episodes we go, the more likely it is the less likely it is that we're covering content that people have forgotten about. So I'm trying to get the older ones out of the way as fast as possible.
Yeah. All right. What else did we get wrong?
So first one is a correction that comes from episode 1.
Oh no, that early, huh?
Yeah. Well, they were talking about how I apparently said that humans are the only species that use tools, and someone pointed out that crows use tools.
Yeah,
and also
true.
chimpanzees and a bunch of other animals also use tools. And I knew that. I don't know. I done goofed. On episode 2, this is not a correction, but it was an addition. I think I said I tried to figure out how many times you could watch 30 Rock in 500 million years.
Okay.
And someone did the math and found out that you could, let me just get this. You could watch 30 Rock 86,067,193,675.9 times in the amount of time it would take.
Wait, were we talking about 30 Rock or were we talking about Third Rock from the Sun?
30 Rock.
Oh, boy, we've talked about both shows on this podcast before.
I guess we have. Next, we have the flying carpet, in which I think I used a term where I didn't have the name for it, and I just kind of mentioned a sort of debate tactic that's used to undermine people's arguments without having strong ones of your own, which is just bouncing between topics so fast the listener doesn't have time to think about it, which happens a lot on Ancient Aliens.
You could say we're doing it right now.
Yeah.
As we bounce from correction to correction, but we're trying to do it in a good way.
Yeah. But that is actually called the Gish Gallop.
Gish Gallop. I've heard of this term before.
So if you ever want to know what Ancient Aliens is doing when they just move from topic to topic without giving you time to process or understand things, that's the Gish Gallop. And it's a common tactic to try and overwhelm somebody by making your argument seem more convincing than it is, because you're like, look, I've got this point and this point and this point. And even if they all are terrible arguments that make no sense, it makes you appear more like you have a stronger argument because...
Yeah. Don't think about this too hard. I'm just going to talk about the next thing now.
Yeah. And then next I got is from the Anunnaki episode.
Okay. And I like that one.
Yeah. And this one comes from our etymology part about dragon, Drake, and Dracula. And it turns out that they actually are related. Oh. They have nothing to do with aliens, but dragons and drakes are words for variations of the same thing, which is true. I think a dragon has 4 legs and 2 wings, and a drake has 2 arms and 2 legs, and the arms are also wings.
But was this the episode that the meme became real with words or thought fossils?
Yes, this is where thought fossils came from.
Excellent. Because I think, they were talking about the Dogon people, Dogon and Dragon and like Dagon or something like that. And they were just all, I don't know if all of those words are related. I would be interested to know, but Ancient Aliens definitely claims to say that like all of those words are that sound similar are related.
Finding a connection between dragon, Drake, and Dracula, which we know have linguistic connections, makes a lot more sense than Dogon. But Dracula is a title that meant son of the dragon in archaic Romanian.
Makes sense.
Although nowadays Dracul is translated to devil. Vlad the Impaler, who is the like Wallachian noble that Dracula is based on, picked up the nickname of Dracula because his father was known as Vlad Dracul after he joined the Order of the Dragon. Yeah, Vlad the Impaler. I don't think we talked about him on this show, but Vlad the Impaler was a Wallachian, which is sort of like an older term for what is a place that is modern day Romania. He was a noble, and in that time, that region was in a pretty nasty set of wars with the Ottomans. And so, Vlad had a reputation for taking captured Ottoman soldiers and like impaling them as like an intimidation tactic. So it was kind of considered pretty intense.
Yeah, that is pretty intense. I wouldn't do that. It's kind of messed up, man.
I guess Dracula's based on him.
Yeah.
So next we get into weather control episode. I was not around for this one.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was Kevin, yeah?
So the first bit talks about quartz and electrical charges from quartz. Apparently it doesn't actually require a natural disaster to get an electrical charge out of quartz. And you can know that because you just have to put pressure on quartz. And I do know this because that's how like watches work.
Watches are done.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a very small amount of electricity, but a bigger crystal would give more. Crystal healing still doesn't work.
Yeah. So this was the episode we were talking about earthquake lights.
Yeah.
And there were some theories about why strange lights might appear in the sky. And there is a theory that it could be because there's some quartz and crystals and stuff underground that is having all this pressure put against each other that could spark some sort of weird electricity or lightning or something in that could appear in the sky. And I didn't go too much into detail on that one. I was just, this is good. This is good additional information about the crystals thing.
The other bit from that is that earthquake lightning might not be real, but volcano lightning definitely is, but it's caused by all of the ash and stuff in the air, not the ground moving.
Oh, so it's just like the light reflecting in a weird way or refracting in a weird way?
I think it comes from static electricity that builds up in like volcanic ash. Yeah, if you ever see like a volcano going off and you see like those big black clouds of stuff, you will see lightning in that. I've never seen a volcanic eruption myself, but I have seen pictures of volcanic eruptions that you can see like there's like bits of lightning and all the cloud that gets kicked up by that. So
you see that meme? I don't even know if it's a meme or like or what, but did you see that meme recently? At least I saw it recently, where someone was like, why don't we go around to all the volcanoes that are still active and just like fill them with cement so that they don't so that they won't be active anymore, so they can't explode. And it's just like, they are rock currently. You know, like things are either it's gonna melt or it's gonna explode and have a big chunk of cement flying at you, you know?
Yeah, and also, like, not a ton of volcanoes are like they are in cartoons where, like, they're an open pit of lava just waiting to erupt. They typically are like...
They are probably covered already by some rock that is
probably
not
the
melted.
rock that was made from the lava of the last time it erupted.
Yeah.
Like, they're very much... If you think of it, a volcano is more often like a pimple where just pressure builds up until it explodes.
Yeah.
And instead of...
But I do like the thought that, why don't we just pour water into it and then it just becomes rock already, and we just cool down in the middle of the earth? Why don't we do that?
Yeah, I don't think I feel like the earth is too hot to really I feel like there is, like, some people, they do something like that, but not for volcanoes, but like to sort of like on islands that get a lot of volcanic eruptions, they like use it to guide the lava away from, say, people and stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that.
But that's only in the cases where, like, you're living on an island where a volcano has, like, there are some volcanoes that they sort of more ooze than they do explode.
Yeah. And if you're on an island with a volcano, just get in the water. You know what I mean? You'll be fine. Just get in the water. You'll be fine.
Perfect. Then the next one I got here is from our first Q&A episode.
Oh, do we get something wrong for a Q&A?
Apparently.
Those are our answers. You can't tell me I'm wrong.
So on the cancer thing, it was proven by looking at baby teeth in St. Louis that atomic tests being done caused issue with the food we eat. It has been proposed that is why cancer is such a problem with the generation that were children during that time.
Why did we talk about this?
We might have been talking about the whole thing with how after atomic tests happened, like our isotopes have all changed. And so, like, iron from before the first atomic tests are actually, like, special and rare.
Right. That's interesting. I wonder if there's been studies done on that, or if it's just sort of like a hypothesis.
I mean, I feel like the generation that grew up during that time was also the time when, like, everybody just ate processed food for like 30 years. And so that could also be part of the reason why so many of them have cancer. And also, it was a time when everybody smoked tons of cigarettes and drank a whole lot more than they do today. So also
true. I feel like Jell-O had a stranglehold on house parties for some reason. Mm-hmm. Does that have anything to do with it?
Well, I gelatin's not the most, like, it is a processed food, but, like, there was a lot. Like, pretty much all of, like, the sort of, like, garbage processed food today was, like, a novelty in, like, the 50s. And everyone was like, oh my goodness, look at this brand new thing called a Twinkie. And so...
Look at all this. You can get a Hungry Man meal.
Yeah, like TV
like
dinners.
Whole dinner
so, like, there's a lot of, and also regulations weren't as good back then. So there was definitely a lot of things that definitely caused cancer that people were just putting into their bodies all the time.
Yeah.
Radiation does cause cancer, but, like, radiation causes very particular types of cancer that we like if somebody develops a certain type of cancer, it's usually a weird one that we're like, oh, this usually shows up when people get, like, when they're exposed to radiation. But for the most part, a lot of the cancers I think people are developing are due to the crap we eat and the sort of pollution. Like, I think a lot of the reason why cancer rates have been going down in younger generations is because we don't smoke, we don't drink as much, and we don't live in I was about to say, this is actually not too long after the really terrible stuff that went down in East Palestine, Ohio. Yes. But, like, that's due to recent deregulations. But there is, in general, less pollution in the air than there was in the 50s.
Do you think now? See, I think radiation. I think it's just our phones, man. We're on our phones too much. Although, if it's going down in younger generations, then we also have to stop saying that they're on their phones too much. Mm-hmm. If the radiation also comes, is it 5G? Is 5G giving people?
5G was giving people COVID, I think, was the thing people were saying. I don't know.
Yeah.
The 5G thing was weird.
I couldn't understand that one. It's just because I'm not smart enough.
So if I remember correctly, the general gist of the 5G thing was that, first of all, people just had conspiracy theories about 5G before COVID, because anytime a new thing technologically is happening and showing up everywhere, including your town, people are going to freak out about it. But then 5G, because like there's people who think that like wind turbines give you cancer. So, but 5G. So then when COVID happened and people wanted to have a reason to not take vaccines or not even think about like not do basic public safety measures, they then blamed the sort of waves of 5G causing the COVID symptoms instead of a virus. And there was even an incident, I think it was in Quebec, where somebody was burning down 5G towers as like a...
See, okay, though you put it in, I still think it's bogus, but you put it into a context that makes more sense. This whole time for like 3 years, I was thinking that they thought 5G emitted a virus, like an actual human biological virus.
Keep in mind, it builds on a very long-running group of like kind of like pseudo health claims that there's something called electromagnetic sensitivity, and there's like an entire community of people who are utterly convinced that if they're exposed to electromagnetic waves, that they have like an allergic reaction. It's been shown over and over again to not be a thing, but like it's big enough to the point where there are people who move to like there's an area in I think West Virginia that has a huge radio telescope.
Mountain Mama, yeah.
And that region is to make it so that telescope can work. They ban all, like, you can't have cell phones. There's no like radio stations or anything in this area. And there are people who move there because they think that they're sensitive to electromagnetic radiation. There was a whole character in Better Call Saul that sort of was supposed to be a discussion about this. Saul's brother, Chuck.
Never watched the show.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
That's interesting. I only watch shows that have Bob Odenkirk in it, so that one better have Bob Odenkirk in it.
Weirdly, it does. It has a few. He shows awesome. Up. He shows up in it occasionally.
That's cool. I've never heard of it. That's cool. I gotta check that one out. All right. What other things did we get wrong?
All right. Now let's go to Oak Island, where I definitely did a big boo boo on this one. So first of all, I said some stuff about my own country of Canada, which was a total mess, because I said that lacrosse is the only national sport of Canada and that hockey actually wasn't, as like a fun fact.
Oh, I remember.
And then I learned that actually in a bill in 1994, Bill C-212 actually made hockey Canada's official winter sport, and lacrosse is our official summer sport.
Ooh. I didn't know you could split it up that way.
I didn't know either. So there you go.
Well, I feel like you have a couple more seasons. You could tack on some sports to.
So spring and fall sport?
As a Canadian, let me get your opinion. What would you tack on as the spring sport and fall sport?
I mean, the Canadian national sport is complaining about the weather.
Is that more spring or is that for fall?
That's going to probably be, I'm going to say fall, because a lot of fall is brought up of having conversations about how cold and snowy you think winter is going to be.
That's good too. Yeah, fall here is like, man, I can't believe how hot it is still. I just want it to be cold. And then it gets really cold and you're like, boy, this sucks. I wanted it to be like mild a little bit.
We're in the current part of winter here where it's March. The first day of spring is next week. And we're like, why the fuck is outside still look like this?
Yeah.
Like we had like a few weeks where we were like alternating between like really cold weather and just like absolutely like ridiculous snowstorms. It got so bad a few weeks ago, we had thunder snow, which is a thing I'd never seen in my life.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
We had like this mega snowstorm where there was like literal thunder and lightning during the snowstorm.
I didn't know that could happen.
It's very rare.
Wow.
But we saw it and we were like, wait a minute, that was thunder we just heard.
Thunder snow.
Yeah.
That's a cool, thunder snow is like a really awesome name for like a superhero or a band. Yeah. Thunder snow. I like it. Someone run with that.
I apparently also said that in Nova Scotia, the Mi'kmaq people don't exist there anymore, which is not true. There are still Mi'kmaq people who live in Nova Scotia, several tribes and reservations, and that pretty much everything in Nova Scotia is built on unceded Mi'kmaq land. I did not know this. I think where this came from is I had a friend who was related to an indigenous nation that lived in Newfoundland. And the Mi'kmaq, I think, used to be in Newfoundland. And I think they got pushed out of Newfoundland. And I just thought that it was like, I kind of generalized it. So
gotcha.
He told me that. And also I'm going off of like what a guy told me. So also grain of sand on that one.
Gotcha.
It was just a friend of mine who wanted to show me like, he was talking about his like his native status in Newfoundland and wanted to tell me about it and told me about that. I don't know. he was like a friend of mine when I was running the radio show a few years. This was like almost 10 years. I was like a few years ago, and I was like, wait a minute, no, that was 2014. That was like almost 10 years ago now. I also, man, I messed up so much in this episode. It's wild.
Oh no.
Also, I seem to mention that Anastasia was a Disney movie, and it's not. It was a Don Bluth movie.
It is not a, yes. I did know that. I can't believe I didn't say anything about it. Yeah, not a Disney movie. Mm-hmm. Classic mistake, though. You're not the only person.
Yeah. Then I did what I definitely would say is a brain fart, because I definitely knew this, and then I said it and I messed it up. And that is, I swapped in my head Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and I said that that Oak Island was in New Brunswick, but it was definitely in Nova Scotia.
I think, okay, all right, this one might be on me a little bit, because I think I remember catching that in the edit, because I think there were parts where you did say it correctly, but then other parts where we were just running through stuff that something slipped up. And I think I did catch that in the edit and maybe left it in because I was like, no one will care. They understand what we mean. Mm-hmm. And we can't go back and record things. It's impossible.
Yeah. So. And then they gave a good fact about because I mentioned something about the Acadians, because the Acadian people live in New Brunswick. And I guess I mixed that. I guess if I did mix up, it's because I had a reference to Acadians. Or Acadians were mentioned in this, and then in my head, I put like Acadians, New Brunswick. The reason is because after the 7 Years' War, which was a war between France and the UK, where the end of the war was basically when Britain got all of what would become Canada. There was a group of people called the Acadians who lived in what is today Nova Scotia. And the British, when they took it over, basically kicked them all out, or kicked out a lot of them after they conquered Quebec City. And they pushed the Acadians, they kicked them out, and they primarily went to two places, New Brunswick and Louisiana. And in Louisiana, their name kind of became more patois and became Cajun.
Gotcha.
And so in like the sort of Creole word in Louisiana, Acadian turned into Cajun.
That's right. Yeah, we talked about this. That blew my mind when you were talking about it.
And they were replaced with in Nova Scotia, English planters from New England moved into the region and started building there.
Gotcha.
And also, I made another classic one, which is that I said that the Viking expeditions of Leif Erikson to Newfoundland, which happened in the 900s AD,
mm-hmm.
and I guess apparently they happened in the late 10th century, early 11th century. I think I said 11th century, so I kind of mixed up the timeline there. Yeah, Oak Island.
It's It's got a lot of moving parts, that Oak Island.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot of, all of these were cases where I just worked off of what I assumed I knew about different topics and didn't look up, which I don't know what to, I don't know how, I can't like obviously research literally every single sentence I say on this show, or else I would be like, this podcast would take like 6 hours to record. I'd have to stop every sentence, be like, I have to look up to make sure that this sentence I say is...
We would have to script the show, and it would be one every couple of months, I feel.
So I'll try my best, obviously, but I am a human being.
Don't beat yourself up about
Unfortunately, there's like thousands of people who are going to hear me when I mess up, which...
Yeah, that's true.
Which makes it more complicated. But that's why we do these things, to keep me honest. The next we're going to Cholula.
Oh, that's awesome. I will pack my bags right now. That's exciting news to drop.
So on our episode about the Cholula Pyramid, you made a specific reference when we were talking about the different words that came from the language Nahuatl. And I said that one of them was chipotle, the sort of name for the smoky tasting peppers. And you mentioned that you always thought it was chipotle or chipotle.
No. That is not what I said. I said I had a friend in college who always pronounced it chipotle.
Okay.
I always thought it was chipotle.
Scott, a genius, said it was chipotle.
I brilliant mastermind Scott Nicewander knew to pronounce it chipotle, but I had a friend in college People know who it is. I used to do a podcast with this buddy. If you listen to my very old podcast, the Nerdsync podcast, way back in the day, it was one of my co-hosts, Bryce. Bryce, that little scoundrel, was incessant on the idea that it was pronounced Chipotle. Not me, not I. Go back, goodness. Check the tapes. That wasn't me.
Okay. What somebody wanted to point out is that the term chipotle, without the L, is actually a word for when you bump your head and it leaves swelling.
Wait, that's what happened to
Roswell.
The guy at Roswell.
He chipotled.
He chipotled.
Hey, you know how we debunk out-of-this-world claims here at It's Probably Not Aliens? Well, let me tell you about something that's truly out of this world, and that's NordVPN. I know what you're thinking. Tristan, how is a VPN out of this world? Well, let me tell you. With NordVPN, I get the fastest VPN on the planet. Wait, are we allowed to say that? Let me know if I'm not allowed to say that. Yeah, that's right. No more buffering when I'm trying to watch Ancient Aliens. Even when I could really use a few minutes of buffering. You know, for my sanity. So do yourself a favor and visit nordvpn.com/probablyNotAliens for an exclusive NordVPN deal. Remember, it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And between March 21st and June 13th, you get 4 bonus months, an entire third of a year with every 2-year plan. Keep your online life secure, and let's keep debunking together. Don't miss out on this deal.
All right, next we get to ley lines, and oh my goodness, I made another really bad one that was based on something I thought I knew was true, but turned out to not be true, which I did, which is, and it came to another time when I said an aside about beer. So I mentioned that there was a delicious brand of beer called Dead Elephant that exists in Ontario, and it still does. It's amazing. It's very hoppy. It's not for everybody, I will say. If you like hoppy, bitter beer, it is amazing. But for everybody else, it is demon water. I happen to love it. But I mentioned that it came from the story of the elephant that got shocked to death by Thomas Edison to try and make a point about Tesla. But it turns out that the dead elephant is named after Jumbo, who is a circus elephant that died. And then apparently the story goes that Jumbo got hit by a train, and that the story is that he was apparently rescuing a smaller circus elephant from that train and got hit himself and died.
A hero.
A hero. Yeah, but the person who corrected me did point out that the beer is solid. And the story that I am talking about was Topsy. Topsy was the electrified elephant, and that was done in Coney Island decades later.
Gotcha. I remember having this discussion online, like on Twitter when we released that episode. What are the odds of two quite famous dead elephant stories happening?
Hopefully hopefully I can be forgiven for my sins of that one, of mixing up two specific stories about like early 20th century stories of elephants being killed in North America.
Look, you don't expect to hear one story about an elephant being killed, let alone two. It's easy to get them mixed up. Both heroes, in my opinion. I guess one's more heroic than the other, though.
Yeah, one reportedly saved another elephant. The other one just died to settle a really petty debate between Tesla and Edison about alternating versus direct current.
And that was great, and everyone loved it when they did that to the elephant.
Somebody also pointed out that flying boats do exist. They're a type of seaplane, and at the bottom of the plane is a boat hull.
Okay, I would argue that is not a flying boat. That is a buoyant plane.
Fair.
I don't think that's a flying boat. I think that's a plane that can sit on water. There's a difference, all right?
I think we're going to need a philosopher to answer this one.
Yeah, we need a philosopher. Can we talk about the thought experiment of Theseus's flying ship, please? If you take this boat and rebuild it into a plane in the middle of the air, is it a boat or is it a plane? When does it become one or the other?
It's a boat. It's a plane. It's Superman. It's Superman in rubbers. So next up, we got the Brahmo weapons episode, which I was very proud of.
Nuclear weapons.
But somebody pointed out that, this is a fun fact, not a correction. Thank God.
Oh, I love these more.
Yeah. Radiocarbon dating needs to be calibrated because of the amount of radiocarbon in the atmosphere has been changing throughout time, partly because of burning fossil fuels and nuclear testing. So basically, we can see in the way that we have to calibrate radiocarbon dating, like we have to change the way that we calibrate it because of the introduction of nuclear testing. So to say that if there was nuclear explosions happening in the deep past, there would be other things that would show signs of it.
And like this, so this is the sort of thing we've talked about before on the show, that I was raised very religious. And like when it comes to carbon dating stuff, like that was a point when like carbon dating was starting to become like a more mainstream topic to talk about, to like figure out how old things are. I was basically taught in Sunday school, you know, like as a kid, that like carbon dating, that's just guessing, you know? It's scientists guessing.
Yes, that's a creationism talking point, I think.
Yes, it for sure is. And so like I always grew up being like, even still today, like there's a part of me that's just like, but how accurate is it? But like the fact that they know how to calibrate it, and it's a constantly recalibrating thing, it just like it fills me like you could view that on one hand as like, all right, so it's sort of a messy system to use, but on the other hand, for me, it's just like that's kind of impressive that they're able, that they can pinpoint it to that sort of like detail of just like, and we have to calibrate to this degree to get a more accurate sort of, I don't know. I think that's cool and interesting.
Radiocarbon decay is an extremely it's an extremely predictable way of those things decay at a very normal pace, and that is why you can use stuff like this. Like the fact that they can like measure things that are like millions and millions of years old and be within a couple million years of knowing exactly when this like rock was solidified is very impressive.
Very cool. Good job, science.
Okay, so this is a correction that comes from the episode that was titled "Alien Clickbait from the 16th Century is Rad."
That was we were talking about paintings that had supposedly encounters or sightings of aliens in them.
Yeah, this comes from an aside about I mentioned about the Ottoman Empire, and I mentioned that the Ottoman Empire basically controlled the entire Middle East at the point of this. The truth is that the Ottomans did dominate trade out of the Middle East. Like they basically monopolized the trade from the Silk Road coming into Europe, but they did not own the entire Middle East until the conquest of the Mamluk Sultanate, which happened in 1517.
Okay.
So until 1517, the Ottomans did not control the entire Middle East.
So a little bit off, then it sounds. Fair enough.
Then we get into the Mohenjo-Daro episode.
Yeah.
And someone pointed out to me on this one that Aryans aren't mythical. They were a real Indo-Iranian people that migrated into India. What I think old archaeologists might have been trying to support was the Aryan invasion theory, in which they just came as a horde and killed everyone, which is actually discredited. Though there is a lot of early archaeology myth about them since the turn of the century, Aryan was used more broadly to mean what we would call Proto-Indo-European today, i.e. the Yamnaya culture and offshoots which got conflated with Atlantis and Hyperborea stuff. So basically that there was a myth that surrounded Aryan people in early archaeology that was trying to make claims that these were like people from Atlantis, but that doesn't mean that Aryan people didn't exist. They are the like common descendants of a bunch of people who basically like they're sort of like a cultural linguistic ancestor of Europeans, but also of like Indians. And like the closest relation to like Aryans today are mostly people who live in India.
Makes sense.
That also could be corrected because I didn't read a book to answer that one. That's just like my general what I think I know about Proto-Indo-European culture. But there's some very, very, very light linguistic connections between like Sanskrit and like the languages of Europe. So
gotcha. That's fair. Hey, look, when we do these corrections episodes, we take your word for it, listeners.
Yeah.
All right.
I can't wait till I get a correction that actually turns out that I was right and the corrector was wrong.
This is on you now. If we get anything wrong in this episode, it is not on us. It is on you, listeners.
Next we go to Area 51.
Ooh.
Okay, so this is the one where I made another. So there's a couple. There's a small one, and then there's the big one that everyone got mad at me for.
All right.
So the small one was, not to be pedantic, but the Blackbird was introduced by Chris Claremont, who loved planes almost as much as strong women. He also showed his love for aircraft in the name of Kitty Pryde's dragon Lockheed, and the introduction of Madeline Pryor as a pilot.
See, I feel like we've talked about this, because I do remember when anytime someone mentions like Lockheed Martin or whatever, my first thought is Lockheed, the little dragon pet of Kitty Pryde.
I did not know Kitty Pryde had a dragon, but okay.
I know, they got to put it in the movies.
Yeah. So then we have to get to probably one of the biggest fuck ups I've done on It's Probably Not Aliens, which was when I told
it's probably a big fuck up.
Yeah. And that is when I was comparing the different approaches to solving technical problems of the Americans and the Soviets. I reproduced a very old and very annoying trend about space pens and pencils.
Yeah.
So basically, the whole story about the U.S. spending millions to build a space pen and the Soviets just using pencils because they're smarter meme actually is more of a statement about the Soviets and the cosmonauts' lack of appreciation for safety measures, because what was happening is that space pencils were creating small bits of debris that could spark fires in space. And on spaceships, typically the air mixture in a spaceship has a higher percentage of oxygen, which means that fires are a way bigger hazard. And also there's no place to vent the smoke. So fires can be
you can't get some fresh, you can't open the windows on the space station to get some fresh air.
So smoke is fire is a very, very big problem in space stuff. So that is sort of the point. And even to be a little bit safe, the Soviets didn't just use a pencil; they used grease pencils because they don't cause as much stuff. But they still cause filing little bits of debris that the space pen was trying to solve. So it wasn't a dumb idea. Well, it wasn't like the developing the space pen wasn't like an example of American silly over-engineering. It was a actual response. And it was in some ways, in many ways, it speaks to the fact that NASA cared more about the safety of their astronauts than the cosmonaut program did. Yeah. Which is true.
Can you buy a space pen? Has that technology trickled down to modern day consumers?
Can I buy a space pen? I think you can. I think that you can buy them as like a novelty. They're not like millions of dollars or anything like that. Millions of dollars is how much it took to develop one. But I think that's cool. Just like you can buy freeze-dried ice cream and call it, astronaut food, I think you can also buy a space pen.
Yeah, I can buy Tang.
Yeah. So here's the full story. In the early years of spaceflight, both the Russians and the Americans used pencils, but the pencil lead is made of graphite, which is a conductive material that snapped. It's a highly conductive material. Snapped graphite leads and particles in zero gravity are hugely problematic. They get sucked into air ventilations or electronic equipment, which causes shorts and fires in a pure oxygen environment of the capsule. And after Apollo 1, in which all of the astronauts on board died in a fire, NASA required a writing instrument that wasn't a fire hazard. So they spent over $1 million, specifically a guy by the name of Fisher. Let me just find the guy's full name. The Fisher. So it's called the Fisher Space Pen is the name of the device. And apparently it was developed by a guy by the name of Friedrich Schachter. And was expanded by Erwin Rath and Paul C. Fisher. Okay. So I'm guessing.
So it's named after the one of the three of them?
Well, the reason is because apparently Fisher put up $1 million of his own money to develop it.
But he just funded it? Did he
it seems like he developed the pressurized ink capsule that it uses.
All right.
Spent over $1 million of his own money creating the pressurized ballpoint pen, which NASA bought at $2.95 each. The Russian space program also switched over from pencils shortly after. 40 years later, snide morons like Tristan Johnson from the internet still snigger about it because snide morons on the internet never know what they're talking about. So
did the corrections say that?
No, somebody linked me to another post. I'm reading from a social media post of somebody explaining it. So, yeah.
That's funny. Hey, what year was it invented?
Oh dear.
Because I'm on inflationcalculator.com and I wanted to know how much the $1 million is today.
1965 is when it was patented.
So let's just say that Oof. Do you want to guess how much in today's money $1 million was then?
Probably like $15 million-ish.
A little lower. It's close to 10 million. It's like $9.5 million.
This is a lot, though.
$9.5 million on a pen. But you know what? You can't put a price on someone's life. I've always said that.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos. And I want a space pen because of all the upside down writing I do.
Yeah.
I don't have to explain it. So send me one for $9.5 million, please.
Mm-hmm. We also mentioned that there was a bunch of stuff about Area 51 and like asking about where areas 1 through 50 are, and that there are actually only 31 areas.
Wait.
Although areas 13 and 21 aren't actually part of the site, and Area 51. 51 was probably named 51 because it's directly across from 15, and also for obfuscation purposes. Like if they had 31 areas and then one was called Area 51, you'd be less likely to be like, where's the missing area? Because they were trying to keep it secret. And also in 2013, the CIA did acknowledge the existence of Area 51.
Okay, that feels like I sort of get it, but it feels weird and even more confusing to me. I thought you were going to say that it is actually Area 31 and people just got it wrong. They just said it wrong and then the name stuck. Sort of like the whole like DB Cooper, how his name was like Dan Cooper or something like that, or the alias anyway. But you know, the fact that there aren't actually 51 areas, but one is called Area 51 just cuz is like, that's sort of like, that's messing with me a little bit. And I'm going to have to sit with that for a while.
The other bit is that I mentioned a U-2 pilot getting shot down over the Soviet Union and saying that the pilot died. This pilot did survive getting shot down. And it was a whole thing because the U.S. assumed that wasn't possible and that all the Soviets had was a destroyed plane. And there was an embarrassing failed cover-up when they basically like thought that they lost their pilot, but didn't.
Whoopsies.
Yeah. All right, let's do Black Death because I did another big goof at this point.
Big goof.
Apparently, like last fall when I did these was like my big goof period.
Both of us, I felt like were so busy at that time.
That was a time when I was full-time. I was doing full-time parenting and also full-time YouTubing and also doing a podcast. It was a very weird time. But
yes,
I don't want to. So anyways, so was the millennial comedy joke just a general joke I missed, or was it the John Mulaney divorce drama was unexpected given all of his wife guy comedy joke, but you mixed up Olivia Munn and Olivia Wilde? Yes, I did. I definitely mixed up Olivia Munn and Olivia Wilde because I mentioned that, Olivia Munn was 13 in House. No, Olivia Wilde was, who is also, she's also a director and I think like is sort of developing a director career. And Olivia Munn, I think she was like one of the oldest video game journalists.
We're gamers. She was in an X-Men movie.
She was?
Yeah, she was in X-Men Apocalypse.
Oh, I for some reason I did not see that.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah, she was a television host for the gaming network G4 on a show called Attack of the Show, and was also a correspondent on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart for a year, but is known for the portrayal of Sloane Sabbath in Aaron Sorkin's HBO political drama series The Newsroom. Oh my goodness, that show is hard to watch. Oh yeah, she was Psylocke.
Yes.
Cool.
One of the only characters inexplicably one of the only characters in that movie that they gave like a comic book accurate costume to. I mean, I say inexplicably. It's because it's an extremely revealing, tight-fitting costume.
Yeah, they do that. So there was that. The 10th plague, the mist didn't knock on the door. It just looked for houses that didn't have the blood of the lamb on the side of the door. That's the origin of the Jewish mezuzah.
No. Okay, I think I remember this. I think we were just making a joke, though.
Okay.
I think you can give us some poetic joke license. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we will have to do a correction for a correction. But I think we were just making a joke about it coming and knocking on, because we were tying it into something else, and we were making a joke about it.
Fair.
It doesn't matter.
It's been a bit. The other bit.
It's been a bit.
Here's the big fuck up I had of this one, and that is I made a reference to medieval Europeans not taking baths, which was it's apparently another. In a long list, because this happens a lot, of us having a lot of bad conceptions about what people were like in the Middle Ages. And it's not a thing. Human beings during medieval times were just as keen as humans now to not stink or have dirt on themselves. Thus, in a general case, it would seem that contrary to popular belief, they still had some basic hygiene practices. Towards this end, we know definitively from surviving texts that people did bathe in some form reasonably regularly, generally varying based on their circumstances. It appears, at minimum, the washing of one's face, hands, and cleaning one's teeth was extremely common, done each morning. On the note of teeth, beyond rags, cleaning twigs were also used. The general method here was to chew on one end of a twig for a time. Then, once it was properly mashed up, use that end as a sort of toothbrush. In fact, in some cases, while they didn't know it at the time, the twigs or roots used actually contained antibacterial substances, perhaps why certain plants became so popular for this purpose, as people observed the effects, even if they didn't understand why they worked so well at cleaning the mouth and teeth, because the people of the Middle Ages weren't stupid. They did figure cool things out.
Yeah, even if they didn't fully understand things like bacteria or, germ theory or anything like that, they could still observe that things worked better than other things, even if they didn't quite understand why.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to washing hands, beyond doing so during a morning body scrub down from a basin, they were also usually washed again before and after eating, because in a lot of times, like, utensils weren't as big a deal, so you had to have clean hands to eat. While some medical professionals did advise against doing it excessively, many others extolled the benefits of bathing regularly and keeping one healthy. So that is one of those situations where I used a assumption that talked down about a group of people who lived in the past in order to sell a story, which I feel very bad about, because that's exactly what we try to not talk about in Ancient Aliens.
And, now that you say it, I remember, again, growing up very religious, there's a lot of stuff in the Bible about, like, people washing their feet or washing each other's feet. So, like, I feel like people throughout history, nobody likes feeling yucky.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to not feel yucky.
Yeah. In context, the reason why I sort of made this assumption and put things together was because I think we were talking about the Spanish Inquisition. And one of the things about the Spanish Inquisition is that they were always looking for people who were like fake converts who pretend converted to Christianity, because it was a time when Spain had recently conquered regions that had big Jewish and Muslim populations. And we talk a lot about, like, a lot of our understanding of the Spanish Inquisition talks about the things they use to try and find people who were still practicing Judaism. But one of the things that I learned when I took my Spanish Inquisition class was about the stuff they did to try and find secret Muslims. And one of them was people who were too clean, because Muslims, as part of their ritual prayers, have to wash their feet and bathe themselves. It's part of Muslim prayer rituals. That's why most big universities and stuff like that have a prayer room for Muslims will usually have a foot bath or something like that so that they can do it to pray. And I guess that's what the Inquisitors were looking for.
Fair enough. I think that's a good place to end it then.
Yeah.
A big final correction with some context and all sorts of good stuff. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much to everyone for sending in corrections. I keep teasing this, but we're going to have these all came in mostly through Twitter and some email. I want to set up a feedback form, a contact form where people can send us stuff. And
comments on the YouTube channel. I use that too.
Oh, and comments on the YouTube channel. Thank you everyone who subscribed over there. Boy, I don't have the outline in front of me. How do we end this show? Well, follow us.
Yeah, go. Well, first we can start off by saying that if you want to catch up with us on Twitter, where we post a lot about this show and keep you up to date on what's going on in the most fast way possible, that is Probs Not Aliens on Twitter. It's the best place to do that. Otherwise, one of the things that you should do is check out Nerdsync, because Scott's a very good boy who makes very good videos.
Oh, thank you. That's me. That's my YouTube channel. I'm working on it. You should also check out Step Back on YouTube, or just stepbackhistory.com. It's a great videos, good content over there at stepbackhistory.com by my good friend, Tristan Johnson.
Yeah. If you like...
PhD.
Nope.
Do you have a PhD?
No, I dropped out of my PhD. But 2 MAs. One of the things, though, is that people, if you like this show, you'll probably like my latest video. It is a 2-hour exhaustive, unhinged breakdown of the Netflix show Ancient Apocalypse, where I get very, and we're just coming off of the Graham Hancock 2-parters. So basically it's me talking about why Graham Hancock is wrong for almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I get increasingly unhinged as I go. So
it's super good. Definitely go check it out.
Other than that, this show thrives on people leaving reviews and sharing this podcast with other people.
Yeah, thank you to everyone who writes reviews. I've mentioned it before, but in this episode, Tristan brought up that we have been getting more and more angry emails about this show. So if you want to fill my email inbox with good stuff, anytime you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, I get an email about it. So thank you to everyone who writes those good 5-star reviews. It really makes me smile. And just share the show around. The best place to share this show, very simple website. It's www.probsnotaliens.com. That's the website.
And of course, nebula.tv/probably not aliens.
Yeah.
And I forgot that we actually have to do one last correction that is sort of general for the whole show, which is that actually it actually was aliens, all of it.
Oh, dang it. It actually was Oh, that's on us. Well,
that's all for now. Until
we'll do better next time.
Yeah.
Until next time.
We'll come back with a correction in I guess like July. Yeah, I think that's when the next one is.
Keep sending them in.
Anyways, until then, I'm Tristan Johnson.
Oh, reverse order. My name is Scott Nicewander.
I'm Scott Nicewander.
He's Scott Nicewander. I'm also Scott Nicewander. Tristan Johnson is somewhere.
Probably. You know what? It's wrong, and that feels right for the corrections episode.
So good.